Hi. Hope you have had your C++ IDE installed successfully. I will be using the Dev C++ IDE in my sessions. But don't worry if you are using another IDE. Most of the IDEs work on similar standard features, and so the process flow would be the same irrespective of your IDE. We are now going to write our first C++ program. So, cheer up. Let's have a quick look at what we would be covering in this chapter. We would start the Dev C++ IDE, write our first C++ program code, save it with .cpp extension in a specific location, compile the program, run its executable file, and finally, view the output. So let's start by writing a program to print, "I want to be a programmer." For this, you will have to start the C++ IDE. From desktop, double-click the Dev C++ shortcut icon and launch C++. If you don't find the shortcut link, you can start C++ by clicking the application file from the location where C++ has been installed. I have installed dev C++ at f:/dev-cpp, and so I go to F drive, open the dev CPP folder, and double-click the file named dev-cpp.exe to launch C++. You are now on board the C++ editor dashboard. Open a new file to write down the C++ code. Click on File, then New, and then on Source File. You now see a blank notepad where you can type in your first C++ code. Just like this. Let's take a closer look at the code. Line 1 is a comment or a rough note for the programmer. Comments don't get executed by the compiler, and that means, comments don't get translated to the machine-readable form. On line 2, the header file named iostream is declared. iostream is a library of predefined reusable special-purpose programs for executing input or output operations. On line 3, the compiler is informed that this program is using the namespace named std. Now, std is the namespace that contains the cout object, which is part of the iostream header file that performs output operations. Remember that we will be in need of the output operations, because our very requirement is to print something onto the computer monitor. This is why I have decided to declare the header file iostream, and then the namespace, std. We can now perform the output operations using them as references for the compiler. Line 5 has int main function. This is the point where all C++ programs start their execution. Int is the return type which indicates to C++ compiler that this function will return an integer value to the compiler, indicating success or failure of the program execution. Just have a look at line 8 that says, return 0. It means, when program execution is successful with 0 errors, the return value to int main function is 0. Lines 6 and 9 are opening and closing braces, within which the block of program code is written. On line 7 is the object named cout, which prints our message onto the computer screen. Cout is the standard output stream belonging to the iostream header file. The message to be printed is written within double quotes and is inserted into the cout object, which then prints it onto the monitor or the screen. On line 8 we have the return 0 statement. Return is the exit status of a program. Here, the integer value 0 is returned to the compiler, indicating that the program has been debugged, is error-free with 0 error, and hence, is ready to be compiled and run successfully. What do we do next? We have to execute the program. Let's click the tab named Execute. Next, click Compile and Run. You can also use the shortcut key F11. We now have to save the file. The Save As box pops up. Click the Save In drop-down list box. Select the disk drive. I select disk drive F. I want to create a new folder in drive F to save all my C++ files. So I click on the New Folder icon. An empty folder is created in the drive F. I rename this folder to CPP Programs. Press Enter to save. Make sure this folder is selected. I then click the Open button. Next, I type in the file name for my first CPP program. I name it as 1.cpp. I click Save button. The program gets saved and compiled. An application file is created by the compiler and it gets automatically executed to generate the output. You can see the output of this program on the C++ display screen. I want to be a programmer. Notice the file path on top left corner of the display screen. You can see that the output is executed by a file named 1.exe, and that this file is in the same folder where the 1.cpp file was saved. Let's navigate to the path and check it out. I had saved the 1.cpp in local disk F, within the folder named CPP programs. Here we see two files, 1.cpp and 1.exe. 1.cpp is the source code file. It is a lightweight file, also called the program code file. It is the 1.cpp file that is debugged and compiled to create the executable file 1.exe. 1.exe is the executable or application file, created by the compiler after the successful compilation process. It is a heavy file, and is also called the object code file. It is 1.exe that runs the program. So here, we come to an end to this session, where you learned how to write your first C++ program. Hope you enjoyed it. In our next session, we will have a relook into our first program, and try to get a better understanding of the C++ program structure. Until then, bye and have a nice time.